going on, guys? The 25th of the 2nd, 2016, and we are back for the weekly unofficial Football Manager show. I hope you all well. Let me know in the comments how you are doing. So this week we have a guest. We have replaced Ryan, but don't worry, we've gone up in the world. This week we have returned to the Football Manager community publicly. We have Statistical Approach. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, thanks for having me. It's very kind to say you've gone up in the world. I wouldn't quite say that myself, but looking forward to the show.
I know we look forward to having you on, as well as our normal co-host Colin. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
It's been a few weeks since Ryan was on. People are going to start to miss him.
We'll see.
Yeah, what I will say is we did have on Typho a bit of fun with hashtag Ryan or hashtag Jay to see who people wanted on next week, and Ryan absolutely stormed to victory, so he will be back next week, and Jay has been sacked again.
Wow.
I don't know. I blame Jay's poor promotion machine.
I was thinking the same thing. But before we get into it and just talk about welcoming Luke back to the public eye of Football Manager, I just want to quickly revert back to late last year. It came out that you used the in-game editor to enhance your YouTube series in a number of ways. It was quite a messy situation that basically led to you stepping away for a short while. One of the reasons you've been invited on is starting early March, you're going to be doing a new series, which we're delighted, really looking forward to. So hopefully that covers the past events and we just move forward, and I'll be excited to get back into it.
Yeah, very much so. Completely agree that I think that does cover things nicely, a pretty good overview, and generally speaking, anyone who follows me, or probably you, really knows at least a little bit about the situation, and everyone's, I imagine, moved on by this stage. But yeah, probably within the next week or so, I'll start releasing content again. And as you said, very excited, really happy when you've said that just there, but generally people in the community are looking forward to it. Not just people, subscribers of the channel, fellow content creators have said they're looking forward to me coming back, which is good, really motivational. I don't think I'm the type of person who relies on other people to motivate me too much, but it is nice when other people are saying, when are you coming back, and kind of asking about my whereabouts. So yeah, I've been working pretty hard in the background to get a few bits and pieces on the go to hopefully have a smooth launch and just get into a long-term series. That's the idea.
Well, I think it's going to be fantastic for JL Aspie, who has been pestering quite often for you to come back. So he'll be very excited to know that you're coming back shortly.
Yeah, Jonathan's a really good guy. I speak to him quite a bit, either on Twitter, Facebook, and so on. Obviously, read his blog, but he's what, him, yourself, a few other content creators have asked. I mean, obviously, people who subscribe to the channel, so it's pretty touching. And I guess even only being away from it for 4 or 5 weeks in terms of producing the content, it gets you out of the habit, and you miss all of that interaction with people daily when, you connect your phone to the internet and you see a nice message or maybe a question, just some sort of interaction about your series. It's just as though there is a little bit missing, because it's, goes without saying, a massive hobby, a big time-consuming thing that I really enjoy. So, as I say, very, very much looking forward to it.
Is there any spoilers you can give on even what nation the new series is going to be in?
Well, I did say in the kind of teaser video when I announced that I'd be coming back soon, because I felt I needed to release a video to bridge the gap somewhat, because it had been around a month already at that point. I said Britain, and I purposely did that because a few people said, you've said Britain, does that mean it's not going to be in England? Is it Scotland? Is it Ireland? Is it Wales, etc., etc.? Well, it is actually in England. I just did that as a little bit of a curveball. Probably the only other thing I would say in regards to a spoiler is it'll be relatively low down, because I'm very conscious all of my most successful series, the ones I've been most passionate about, have been really long running. I think that fits in with my style. I've talked about it before, where people will be familiar with the term long form articles, where the really long and in-depth writing. I feel as though my style's that for FM videos, where I really do a bit of a deep dive at certain times. So I think just generally having a long-running series fits into it perfectly. Having a 2 or 3 season series just wouldn't make sense for me. So yeah, low down in England with kind of not a usual backstory. It is different to what I've done in the past, but I'd like to think I've went to the same level of detail in terms of laying the foundations with a nice story element there.
I'm gonna guess with Accrington Stanley.
No, not Acton Stanley. I promised that if it was, I would actually own up and say, yeah, it's them, but it isn't.
What I want people to guess in the comments below, or hit us up on Twitter or however, and just let's all get guessing ready for the release of the video, and let's see who gets it correct, if anybody.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I'm sure, I don't think it's the most obvious of clubs at all, but I think if enough people, had an educated guess from what I've said, you would probably get there. It's not something completely obscure or a made-up club that it's not create a club mode or something absurd like that where it would be impossible to guess. Someone could put two and two together.
Oh, there we go. Then fingers crossed somebody will guess it, just because it would be quite cool.
Yeah, in terms of the preview, I was recording that very recently, and I even said and I might be wrong here, but I've never seen anybody blog about or record a video about a series, a playthrough with this club, which really surprised me. That's what I mean about, someone could guess it. It's not that obscure, so hopefully, no one has done it before, because it just makes it that little bit more special, I guess.
Fingers crossed, something to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely.
I just want to go on to what, Colin, you've been up to overnight for us, or late evening for you. Last night, this morning, you were streaming overnight.
Yeah, I was jumping back in with. So we've been playing with the Houston Dynamo, doing an MLS save on Twitch. So just generally helping people understand the league, how it kind of works. Sort of the ins and out, and just kind of helping people get educated. We were doing it while watching the CONCACAF Champions League games last night, so doing a bit of chatting about that while playing. Straightening things out a little bit. It's been a pretty rocky start, to say the least, so hopefully we don't get sacked, but if we do, we'll keep moving on and see what's happening. But otherwise, that was good. We had a bunch of people in, just learning about the league and chatting, so it was fun.
It's definitely been interesting over the last just over a week now. Myself and Colin have decided that we were going to get Twitch going for FM Central again. We hadn't done it since FM 2015. So now I've got the new computer. Now Colin's got a new computer. We can both stream with no issues. So we thought, let's give it a go. I've been streaming every single day between 11 and 2 my time, 10 and 1 UK time, and been getting a regular group in, which is fantastic. And I'll be back tomorrow. Somebody's listening to this as soon as it goes live. If not, I'll be back Monday, again between 11 and 2 my time. So hopefully we see people there. It will be just random saves, because I am eagerly anticipating the official update, so I can do a long-term blog save with Unofficial in Norway, who have just been relegated to the 3rd tier after being in the top level in the Tipper League and only a couple of years ago. So really, really excited to get into it. Really looking forward to Sports Interactive finally releasing this update. So obviously fists are shaking at the likes of the Chinese Super League, who were holding us back due to their belated transfer window closing.
When does the window shut?
I think, I might be wrong, but I think it's tomorrow.
Yeah, because I was thinking, generally speaking, obviously before the Chinese window being so important, it was very late February, or kind of mid to late February, the update used to come out. So I think if it came out in March, that would be the latest it's ever been out that I can remember. But again, the Chinese window obviously affects it.
I know Miles has already tweeted saying it's not going to be out this week.
Right.
So that kind of points, the fact he said this week kind of points towards they maybe are literally finished and they're just adding them final deals which go through in the last day. So possibly next Friday, maybe the 4th.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Which isn't a bad time to release it. They do like a Friday release, even though they've randomly been doing a lot of Thursday stuff over the last couple of years. So I'm not going to complain if it comes a day early.
Yeah, that is true, because the game itself came out, the beta version of the game came out a day before everyone thought, didn't it? On a Thursday.
Yeah, I think they got a bit excited and just clicked launch.
Yeah.
No,
and again, as you said, no one complained at all.
No, it's a nice surprise when you sat there and you're like, oh, it's gone live, quick, download.
Yeah, I had loads of plans for content and stuff, and I was literally scrambling around trying to get stuff sorted a day before I'd expected it, so yeah.
So basically, if anyone from Sports Interactive's listening, give us a heads up next year.
Yeah, just a quick message.
Yeah. But we're going to go into our YouTube saves. Obviously, Mr. Stat, you can't really talk about this. It's a secret. But Colin, how's yours going? Your uploads have been very hit and miss recently. Do you want to just explain yourself?
Oh no! Unfortunately, I've been traveling a bunch with work, so it's been a little difficult to get ahead of the content with that. So I apologize for that. And then I had a technical glitch today, so I had to delete the video. The audio track got all mucked up when I checked it this morning before everything went live. So I'm working on fixing it tonight. I'll do a double upload tomorrow to get everything back on track with it. But otherwise, going pretty well. I think the season's winding down. We kind of made a really exciting mid-season run up the table, and it was getting a little. I don't know. I started to think that a back-to-back was in the cards to the championship. It seems to have petered out. We seem to have cooled down. So I think at the end of the last episode that's up there, we're basically safe in League One. Next it's all about planning for next season now. I think we have a couple of little frailties going on that we have to deal with, but for the most part, it's about preparing for a much more stable, much more solid League One season, and then working towards promotion to the championship.
Fingers crossed that happens soon for you, Colin.
I am hopeful.
Well, for myself, today's episode, we just signed John back. People who follow series will know I can't pronounce his full name. Icelandic winger who we had for half a season, and we ended up, 1.5 seasons, and ended up moving on for $1 million to Huddersfield, our first £1 million sale. He spent 1.5 years at Huddersfield, and now in our third season in League One, he is coming to help us push to reach the playoffs again. So fingers crossed we can do that. He's definitely a class above anything else we had, so I'm delighted to bring him back into the club on a free transfer. So it was nice to basically get £1 million to loan somebody out for a season and a half. So thank you very much for that, Huddersfield. Bram Ellison's closing in on 400 appearances now, so he is an absolute superstar at the age of, I think he's just about turned 25, so fingers crossed he can get closer and closer. I'm starting to work out in my head, can he get to 1,000? Maybe not. I genuinely don't know how many he's going to get, but it's superb that he's in there. You've got Simpson and Reed both closing in on 300 appearances as well. So very nice that them three are basically flying the vintage FC United Manchester flag. So yeah, hopefully they stick around, and hopefully you keep enjoying the save, people who are following it. But we'll have to jump over you, Mr. Stat, for the YouTube series, unless you want to tell us how it's going, but I doubt it.
Well, just to pick up on one of the things you said there, in terms of the amount of games a player could get, last year with Stamford, Kevin Westlake got somewhere in the 800s, I can't remember exactly, but I remember in one of the episodes using Jamie Carragher as a reference point. Obviously, another centre-back played his entire career for one club, and he's in the 700s, obviously, in real life for Liverpool. So I think 1,000, I don't know if anyone's ever got there, certainly, and I don't know if they have in European football. Giggs definitely wasn't there for United. So yeah, it would be quite the achievement to get to 1,000. Maybe a keeper has, actually, come to think of it, but it would be.
Yeah, I think if you work out, say, 50 a season, and that's in a good season, he's not going to get to it, is he? Because that's going to be another 10 years to get 500.
Yeah.
And then also, I think the biggest issue is the fact that when you go into the history page in Football Manager, it doesn't record the cups and stuff on the general view. I would have to go through every single season, because you can view it if you click on that specific season. So to get his full caps, including cup competitions, I would have to go through each season and add them all up.
Or, I think I'm right in saying a quick way to do that is if you go to the best 11,
okay,
it'll tell you their total. That's where I got Westlake's from, but it doesn't show you it anywhere else, so it's still a little bit of an annoyance. but it will show you it there. But season on season, it doesn't. You're right, it is just totaling up the league appearances. Unfortunately, I've said that often in videos before, that one thing FM still doesn't handle that well is the historic side of things. People or players compiling records, even managers. It just doesn't handle it anywhere near as well as what the media do in real life. They're always talking about, such and such needs 10 more goals to break whatever record or X number of appearances, whereas in the game, you almost have to find that out for yourself, where it's, it should be made really obvious.
Well, I think, not that I play in it much, but for example, European competition, the fact of how many appearances the likes of Ronaldo, the likes of Messi have played in it, it's something that they are proud of, it's something that they look back on. Yet when you go on the history of a player on Football Manager, it only has the league record visible unless you actually click on the season, then it comes up at the bottom. And as you say, and again, it seems like we're passing some messages to Sports Interactive tonight. If you're listening, please fix that for FM17, because it would be nice to see an overall, if not maybe league and cup side by side, just something, just to make it a bit better, because I will be counting Bram Ellison's cup games in his overall record, because it's still competitive football at the end of the day. So yeah, that is something that definitely needs to be improved. But we're going to move on to some financial planning that Colin wanted to talk about this evening. And it's something that it interests me, but also frustrates me when it comes to how Football Manager handles finances. So Colin, do you want to get us started on this?
Sure. So I've been sort of, watching the groups just to kind of see general topics in that, and something that I've noticed is a lot of people sort of seem to be asking questions about, they seem to get themselves caught in a trap of, okay, crap, I'm losing lots of money, now what do I do? And when you sort of start asking questions and you unravel it, what you end up seeing is basically anytime a dollar comes into the club, people start spending it all over the place. Either I need more coaches, or want more coaches, or expanding facilities, or stadiums, or new hot dog stands. Pretty much whatever they can ask somebody to spend the money on. So I thought the question was, given different saves and series and experiences and things like that, how we each sort of approach and deal with financial planning. So I know it's something that Paul, you and I have talked a lot about in the past, and I've talked a lot about it in my series with Truro. That I've made focused investments. Right, I've looked at the club and said, okay, there are certain things I can do, certain things I can't do. So it's just not worth spending money in it. Right. So the last big one was last year. We got to Chelsea in the FA Cup third round. And had a decent windfall of cash. And the decision that I had kind of talked through on the video and went through was, what's the best way to spend it? Do I go and improve youth facilities and try and slowly bring up my youth system so that by the time we get to a Premier League level, we're able to generate youth through our own youth intakes that we can use in it? Or do I make more concerted investments in the training facilities so that players that we have can perform and reach their potential, and just deal with youth in other ways? So, I think a big piece of it is planning. Like, I sit and look at it, and year on year, what do I think I'm going to do? Where am I going to put my money? So that, and even playing with the coaching staff, right, is, do I really need every 10,000 coaches so that every 2 players have their own personal coach for everything, to kind of manage the money, so that at the end of the day, we're not imploding. Okay, so fine, I'm not making a fortune at this point, but I'm not imploding, which I think is absolutely critical.
I think in terms of what you were saying there about planning, do you improve the youth and stuff, that it's such a tough ask at the low level, because it's so expensive to do, and sometimes is it justified? I mean, I think I've done it once in my 13 seasons in total, because obviously I'm a bit ahead off the recording, and I'm still getting through some decent youth, but I'm finding just a bit of effort on the training is better, because you can bring in youth players from outside the club. In terms of trying to generate revenue, my biggest issue at the minute is My wages are a lot less than anybody else in the division, and a prime example is my best central defender. I've just had a club in the conference ask if they can have him on loan, and it's like, yeah, if that's the standard of my players, then my biggest issue is I'm spending too much money on my staff, and I'm really struggling to make income. I mean, I really wish I could just bake some cakes and sell them outside the ground. I mean, you've said it before, Colin, a bake sale would be superb for your club.
Absolutely.
I think finances in terms of community revenue seriously need to be improved, because a lot of clubs over here, for example in Norway, make a lot of money with community work, community events like training youngsters. Parents pay for the kids to go and stuff, and it's something which is missing in Football Manager. It's so easy to lose money. My stream on Twitch at the minute with Rail Union, I'm losing an absolute fortune, and I checked, and I'm spending the least amount on wages of the whole division, and it's insane. I'm in the third tier of Spanish football, and my wages are the least in the division by quite a lot. And I'm still losing about 100k a month on literally nothing, on other non-football costs. I mean, it drives me insane. So you have to make player sales or have a good cup run, and it's the only way it seems to make money at the minute. I mean, Luke, when you're managing, I mean, how do you handle finances? Do you have any special things you always do or anything?
Well, I think Colin summed it up quite well when he was talking about always having a plan and looking year on year, but generally I think the other thing is have a plan before starting the save about what you're looking to achieve financially in terms of a direction. Are you going to look to develop from within, i.e. concentrate on getting the best possible youth intake, or are you going to look to recruit players from kind of externally and then improve training? Because I think from a lower level doing both is pretty hard, but then the flip side of that is whoever the board is, whoever the chairman is, it's very hard to get a handle on what they'll allow and what they won't. Sometimes it almost defies logic, and you just kind of taking a punt at the end of each year and hoping for the best. But really, generally speaking, the way I've always had any sort of control over finances is just from good recruitment and then selling players to almost subsidise that, because as you say, you look at the finances and you think that just inevitably to have a good coaching setup, or, well, not a good one, a great coaching setup to get the absolute maximum out of your players, you're almost always going to be running at a loss until you're playing in the top flight and going quite far in domestic and maybe even European competition. So it's a hard balancing act, but if you're managing to sell players for, a pretty profit, then you're absolutely fine. It keeps you more than above water.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my best player for Real Union, at the minute, I keep getting offers for 50,000 for him, and it's not dropping the ocean for what I need. So I might as well hold on to him and just hope that I can get promoted to subsidise the loss at the minute. It's definitely a fun challenge, but it's frustrating when there seems nothing I can do.
Well, I think there's an interesting point that, Luke, you bring up is, so when you start a series, just to explore it a little further, do you look and say, okay, when you're doing player recruitment, right, do you look and say, look, I'm looking for, 22 guys or 23 guys to put on the team that I'm interested in really playing, right, that I want to be a piece of the team, and then do you look and say, you know what, let me try and find, 5 guys, and my goal for these guys is I'm not really interested in them being a forever, part of this squad. It's they're a 2-year, a 1-year, a 3-year project to try and get their value up, or get them in there so that you can just turn them around for a profit. Do you those kind of things that you look at when you're trying to do, squad planning to help sort of financially?
Well, I think it's a mix of the two, really. I think my initial reaction is that if you sign good, promising players at a decent age, inevitably, if you're at a low level, bigger clubs are going to come in because they're promising, they're going to develop, hopefully, with you. But I definitely have signed players in the past with almost the prerequisite of, right, even if they don't pan out fantastically for me, we've brought them in on a free transfer. We're going to make a little bit of a profit on them. So always having that as, I guess, a plan B. But I would say probably 80% of the time I'm signing somebody with the ultimate goal of them improving the first team and sticking around for as long as I want them to, rather than almost being forced to sell for financial reasons. But again, I think you just need to make sure you get that balance right. But as a project, I would rarely sign someone just for the profit. That would always be the plan B.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I know I brought in last season or season before 5 players from Iceland, and people commented saying like how good of a bargain people thought they were, and they all came in with the idea of they all cost me either nothing or 1.5 thousand, so every single player was going to be able to be moved on for profit no matter what happened. And some of them now, my right back for example, he's valued at about 300,000, and there are some clubs in high divisions looking at him, so I'm probably moving him on for close to $1 million, I would think, because he's very talented. He's now being capped by Iceland, and he's still only 20, so he's going to slowly gain more and more value. Same with the right winger. Again, came in for free, did fantastic, hit the ground running. He's continued that form, and again, he's now valued at a couple 100,000, and no doubt clubs would be interested in him if I offered him out for 150, 200,000, which at the end of the day is all profit on him. But it is the best way to make money. I think that's obvious. The best way to make money is either, well, cup success or selling players on. Sign them young, sign them cheap, sell them for a lot. It's doable if you can get in the right players, but then you've got to make sure you don't become too attached. There's certain players in my club which I would never let go, no matter how financially screwed I would be. So that's the challenge, is selling people if you need the money. I mean, would you ever sell anyone, Luke? Or sorry, has there ever been anybody in your squad who you've refused to sell just for sentimental reasons?
Yeah, definitely. I mentioned Kevin Westlake before. I think there's a few. Certainly with Stamford last year, I used to make a decision on players around 27 or 28 and think, right, it's getting to the tipping point now where if I do keep them, it's going to be for sentimental reasons because they're past the point where we can get the maximum amount of money for them, i.e., if they're an asset, they're only going to start decreasing in value from this stage. So, and that, I used to make sure it was only maybe a handful or even less, 3 or 4 of the players then that would stay at the club until they're retired, but everyone else would hit that tipping point and be sold for as much as I could possibly get. But that makes it sound a little bit clinical, but I guess it has to be eventually, otherwise you're going to end up with, what happened to Manchester United when Ferguson left, a group of players where you need almost a mass exodus, and obviously that isn't good for a football club.
No, definitely not. Just before we move on, talking about keeping players, how much do you rely on your coaching staff? And the reason I'm asking this is my coaching staff with FC United are superb. And I rely very heavily. All my players come through the scouts. I will go out and look, but then I will say to my scouts, right, go and scout that league. I think I found a couple of people. My coaches I rely heavily on advice on training and etc. But I have a player who, for the last 10 seasons or 9 seasons, he's averaging over 80% on passing, tackling and heading in the defensive midfield role. He's also getting a 7.2 or above average throughout the whole season. If any stat that is needed, he is absolutely demolishing it. The fact he's heading a better percentage than my centre-backs, the fact he's passing better than my central midfielders, he's just superb. Yet my coaches all state that he is not good enough for the club. So it's very up in the air. It's a hard balance, Luke, when you've got to decide what to trust and what to rely on your staff for, then what to just ignore them about.
Yeah, it's when they're actually judging a player's ability and giving a star rating, regularly you'll see you've got a scout with just hypothetically 18 judging player ability, 18 judging player potential, so right, close to that top end. and they absolutely love a player. You bring them into the squad, and the coach thinks they're bang average. And I always just assume it's because, generally speaking, coaches aren't as good at identifying, either players' current ability or their potential, and are much better hands-on actually developing them. So I've kind of got this view where it's my job or the scout's job of getting the players in, and then really that coach is just there to get the player from A to B, as in, from whatever their ability is now to hopefully the maximising their potential. If you let your coaches loose with recruitment, you'd probably do really, really badly. So I guess as a summary, I just take it with a big pinch of salt.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what I will say is the coach who's doing these ratings is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So maybe that's why he is not Norway's manager anymore, and he is now my assistant manager. So
yeah, I'd be interested to see what he's judging, player current ability and potential is. If it's really good, that almost blows that theory out of the water. But I'm more speaking generally over a few different saves. If you just did a cross-section, obviously good scouts are going to be far better at that than coaches. They specialise in other areas, so I don't ignore it, but sometimes it's almost a bit of an on-running joke during my series that you sign this player you're dead excited about, he looks awesome, he's playing awesome, and your coaches just take an instant dislike to his ability for seemingly no reason at all.
Yeah, definitely. I will check it and I'll let you know what his abilities are.
Very good.
We're just going to go on and just pick out some stuff we've seen this week. There's a lot of stuff going on in the community at the minute, there's some superb stuff to read. And a lot of it I'm coming across because of tifo.site. See that, Colin? I said it correctly?
Absolutely. Spot on.
First thing to mention is our good friend Guido at strikeless.com. He has a new logo. And it is evil. It has red eyes. And it is basically letting you know that if you go strikeless, you are moving to the dark side. But he's also been doing some work this week, Luke. He has brought out tonight building a dynasty squad, some do's and don'ts basically of going through what he recommends when putting a squad together. And I'm really impressed by it. I've had a look through it. I've had a read of it. I'm not sure if you've managed to see it yet, have you, Luke?
Not quite yet, but I will say everything that he writes, I either read relatively quickly or I save it for later. I use this app called Pocket where I can read things at a later date, and he's one of the people I'll always get back to. And to be honest, recently he seems to have really stepped up how often he's been writing, and it's all been very detailed and great stuff as you would expect. So sometimes it's hard to keep up, but I did see him tweet that out, and I will be checking it out soon.
That's a fantastic piece. Just going through the different things he looks in to put a squad together, then looking at what he feels in his opinion is a good squad size, the correct ages to have in the squad, the correct contracts to have for players. And it's just really, really well put together, and as always, really well written, and you just kind of get lost in it, and you end up finding yourself, you're finished and you're then moving on to something else on the site, which is what you want when you're reading something. The next piece I want to pick out is from Yam Yam FM, someone who, Colin, you've promoted a lot in the past. He's doing a Moneyball with Fulham at the minute, and the post on the website seems really interesting. He struggled in the league, but he made quite a lot of money in the first season, Colin. So he is, and I think he is enjoying it.
Yeah, I think it seems to. In the past, he's had a couple of really good series. I think, he's a really good, sort of that lesser known, writers in the FM space. Does some really interesting series stuff. Is a good style. Does a really nice job of catching, kind of getting you what's going on, how he's thinking, how he's approaching, and kind of why he thinks things turn out the way they turn out. So a great author, great writer. The new series is interesting. Sort of the kind of taking the whole Moneyball and more analytical approach to sort of how to handle everything, and then applying it into Fulham to try and restore them back to where they were. So I'm interested to see how it goes. And like you said, money is the first part of Moneyball, because once you have it, it's the tool to which you spend. So it was a successful first season. So I'm interested to see what he does and how he keeps applying the principles.
Definitely. We're just going to jump backwards now to strikers.com again, because as he has been doing, which I think is a fantastic little piece, really nice on the website, is Rowlwatch or Rowlwatch. Quite unsure how to pronounce his son's first name, but basically he has a son inside Football Manager. Quite funny that he did come out as mainly a striker at first, but Guido worked his magic, called him in the office, had a couple of words with him, just explained that you don't play if you are going to be a striker, but he's dropped back, he's happy to play in that attack midfield role, and he is scoring for fun. I won't give it away, but he is now an international player, so it's worth going to check that out. Keeping with the idea of kind of like a little story theme, there's something on Cleon's website, it's by a guest writer called @MattLangdon73, and I'm not going to lie and say I've followed it all the way from the start because I haven't. But the Belmondo diary is something which I've kind of stumbled across recently, and I've read the last couple of pieces of it, and it is superbly written. It really is well done, and I can see why Cleon was so happy to have this on his site. And it is of the level that I would expect from something that Cleon did. It is that good. And it reminds me a little bit of Chris Darwin's Johnny Cooper books, in that diary form. And really, really nice, really well put together, and definitely worth reading. Then once you finish that, go over to Amazon, search for Chris Darwin's Johnny Cooper Championship Manager and get that bought, because it'll keep him happy. And it'll pay for him to stay in Spain for that little bit longer, Luke.
Yeah, very much so. We always have a joke with Chris about that, don't we?
Well, it's always nice to live in the sun.
Yeah, and he seems to be loving it in those adverts that always pop up on my TV.
Definitely the most famous man in the Football Manager community, it appears.
Yeah, definitely. Now Miles has taken a step back from being on the kind of the video introductions for each new game.
Yeah, we'll see Chris pop up at the intro for FM79.
Yeah, that'd be quite the sight, wouldn't it?
But we're actually going to move on to Chris and go into the highertempopress.com, and he's doing a new series with a custom database. I can't remember the person's handle. Is it just 1 second, I will get it for you. It is @Shrunaldo, and basically he's released a European database, kind of for Central Europe, is it, Luke, from what I understand from seeing Chris talk about it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I haven't used the database myself, but I've followed Shrunaldo for quite a while. He used to write about the game a lot more a couple of years back, but I say a couple of years at least. Hasn't done anything for FM15, I don't think, certainly not this year, but is now getting back into it, which is fantastic. Obviously, we've talked about the community quite a bit. Really, really good. He's probably spent a couple of weeks on the database itself, and I think he even released a tactic the other day on his Twitter feed. I don't know if he's started blogging yet. I did kind of ask him about that, and he didn't say anything concrete, but I'd certainly, advise people to follow him if he is going to be talking about the game, because most people really enjoy his tactical writing and just his general takes on the game. So yeah, I think it's @Ronaldo, so really, really simple, but there'll be a link to the database on there for sure.
Definitely. And the post to check out on the High Tempo Press is called The Bohemian Rhapsody, The Blaming of the Shrew.
Huh.
And basically he's using his database, and he has took charge of Bohemians, which I think, are they from Czech Republic? I think they are. Yes, Bohemians Prague. There we go, see? Knowledge. He's done 3 parts of it. I've checked out the first part, and the other 2 parts are on my list to read. I have learned how to use bookmarks on my computer properly, and it is actually organised. So there are some stuff I need to catch up on, but I'm really looking forward to getting into that and just kind of reading what gets done, because the High Tempo Press is done by Chris, who did the Johnny Cooper book, so you know it's going to be of a good quality, you know it's going to be worth reading. And it also has some good guest writers on, which is always fantastic. There's a post called Classic Championship Manager Brits Abroad. I've been checking that out, really good read. So definitely worth checking out. And to end the community plug, once you've finished listening to this podcast, you need to go over to the Deep Line podcast, which you can find on many different, on iTunes, on SoundCloud, Audio Boom I think they're on as well, just to show off. But go and check that out. 2 podcasts in the FM community which are worth checking out. There are some others out there, but I haven't listened to them enough to personally recommend them. But it's always worth checking out as much as you can. But I want to thank you for coming along, Luke.
Yeah, to be honest, before we go, I've got a couple of community things to jump into. If you don't mind.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
No, the more the better.
Well, first up, as you were talking there, I was giving you most of my attention, but I did get up Shrew's post about what it was, and that's the leagues. The countries are Austria, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Slovenia, and Hungary have been crammed into one league system. He's created new rules and new cup competitions and new methods of reward he's put with ... afterwards. So I think that's something to do with the prize money, but there's a link on his Twitter feed, so that looks good. But in terms of the content that I've been checking out in recent weeks, obviously I've had loads of free time on my hands compared to in the past when I was actually creating the content. So the first thing I would mention is James, who's at FM Pressure on Twitter. His blog's fmpressure.wordpress.com. He's done some awesome saves in Germany in the past. Did a Schalke one earlier this year in terms of FM16, but has recently been doing a few blog posts with Liverpool, so nothing too mind-blowing or anything like that, but he's just got a really nice conversational style. So anyone who wants to read, kind of 5-10 minute blog updates, he's done a couple in the last week. I would suggest checking that out either on Twitter or on the blog itself. And probably the other thing that I've really, really enjoyed in recent weeks is the Typho update. Obviously, massive change to the community. First up, we got the news that Cleon wasn't going to be writing anymore. Then within, maybe 24, 48 hours, there was the bombshell in a very positive way dropped on everyone that Typho was going to be launching imminently. Of course, myself, you, probably a lot of people in the community got early access, and now it appears everyone has got access to it, certainly over the last week or few days, and it's been awesome from my perspective. I know probably everybody said similar things, and I think initially my take on it was maybe the downside would be it would take a little bit away from Twitter and Facebook and maybe stop people, well, not necessarily stop, but make it harder for people to discover the community because it's a little bit tucked away. But really, since using it, the exact opposite's been true. It's just been so good. Every day, if I've been busy, come home from work, I've just went onto there and had a look at what content's out, had a look at what new blog posts out, and just compiles everything in such an easy, kind of friendly, usable way. And I think probably the overriding sense I've had from this is it really shines a light on who within the community is community focused. The people on Twitter or wherever who have been really supportive of the community. So obviously myself, you, Cleon, Cleon massively. I think Dave, the guy from initially Sorted Out SI, who's, I guess Cleon won't mind me saying this, the brains behind the coding and stuff like that. Obviously, those guys, hugely community focused. And I know a few other people, unfortunately a little bit negative towards the community and have almost suggested there isn't a community, which I think 99% of us, disagree with and have really pushed for, to try and create this kind of family atmosphere, helping each other out and growing together. So it's, it really, really has been an awesome time in the last couple of weeks, and just another reason for me wanting to get back out there creating content, because it's, in my opinion, the community's in a better place now than it's ever been. We've talked about it away from the podcast, how Sports Interactive, the official Twitter feed, and now promoting people, yourself, Guido, stuff like that, which is just awesome. It doesn't have to happen, but it's nice that it does. The community can survive without that. It could survive without, Tifo did beforehand, but that's why I'm saying things are in a better place now than they were even a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, really, really good.
Yeah, it's definitely good to be part of a community, and I'm absolutely loving how the community is coming together. And I think Tifo definitely just brings the community together more and more, which is what we want and what we enjoy seeing. Before anything else, there is one thing I did forget, Colin.
Okay.
I forgot to do some shameless self-plugging. For anyone looking to improve their Football Manager, if you're just looking for some custom graphics, some skins, logos, face packs, etc., we now have the Football Manager Essentials list. It's on the top of the latest articles, so when you go on footballmanagercentral.com, it's at the top. You can't miss it, and it just gives you a list of things you will need to help graphically improve your game. So check that out, and hopefully it does help you just improve how your Football Manager looks. But that is the end of tonight's podcast. So as always, Colin, thank you very much, sir.
Always good to be here.
So yeah, Luke, I want to thank you for coming on. It's been fantastic having you with us this evening.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure coming on. Really, really appreciate the invite. Fingers crossed, I'll have some content out soon and we'll be able to chat again in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, definitely look forward to seeing it. And from all of us, have a nice weekend, people, and we will see you next week for Beyond the Touchline and the Weekly Football Manager Show.